There were two. That one was the worst team I've ever been on. Well, there was another one too. We had one.
Wait,
NA
hold
staff with a
on.
couple-
Welcome to All Chat, everybody. We're going to start off another episode. Our guest is going to be Avery. Avery, continue to talk about the worst team that you've ever been on.
No, that's okay, Austin. That was I didn't know you were filming, so we don't need to go over that. You had a list of topics you wanted to talk about today, so I'm sure we can get.
No,
into those.
You don't want to derail that.
I want to
Who's
hear
on that team? I don't even remember. It was Anna, Saksa,
It was Kaiser, right?
Borev, and Kaiser. Whatever happened to him? Did he even play
I
on
don't
anything
know.
else? He just disappeared. Yeah, that was like that team did not even function because it was too global. But it had many TI future winners on it and me, which is kind of cool. And I guess Kaiser, wherever he went, maybe he changed his name. He's a TI winner too. Maybe it was like Yatoro. Just ended up being Yatoro. Nobody knew. It's possible.
It's actually an anagram for Yatoro. Just don't think about it too hard.
Exactly.
So
yeah, but anyway.
This team's name. What was the team name?
Team World.
That's very apt considering
we
your
bespoke our own demise. Yeah, it was quite. That was a crazy team. I feel like we formed. The basis of that team was literally Sox is like I want to play with a 4 position who can make shot calling like Misery because that was after he got off the TC stack. So I was like, okay, whatever. I have nothing better going for me. And then Forev's just like, yeah, let's go boot camp in Europe. This is like 2 days after we formed, like 2 days before we're gonna play some online qualifier. He's like, oh yeah, me and Anna just went to like France or something. I was like, what the fuck? And he's like, yeah, you guys want to come to like France or something? Like he literally flew from Korea to France or some shit in Europe, like a day. And he told us like the day before. And I was just like, dude, I can't just like go to fucking Europe. I didn't even know if they had a boot camp. They just went to some LAN cafe. I had no money at that point. I had fuck all. He just went, and I was like, dude, we can't go. And then they were like, yeah, this team's not going to work if people aren't willing to commit. And I was like, what the fuck is happening? I'm like willing to commit to a team, but that was like the most insane trajectory ramp I've ever seen on a team. It was like, yeah, let's play together to like, yo, we're in France, but where the fuck are you? And I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know where I'm supposed to be. So unfortunately, that team did not work out. I wish it did, though. Good players.
Okay, so
what was the second one then?
Was this team also called Echo International?
No.
Okay, because I see Echo International with Anna, Kaiser, Forev, Chuan, Doxa. So did you leave the team?
Yeah, so they tried to like continue the team after I left or got kicked or whatever the fuck it was.
Okay.
And then at some point
they around for a while, I think.
Yeah, we wanted to get Shadow, I remember. Because Forev knew Shadow, the ex-Wings carry TI champion, and he was like thinking about coming back into the scene because I was like 2 years after the whole Wings Ace thing, and then it was like, oh, I can play again. I was like, I don't know anything about him, but he's a TI winner, so sure. But he doesn't speak any English, so we were like, the team's already so global. Let's just throw a Chinese person who can't speak English in there. Like, fuck it, That never happened though, so I guess it didn't work out for him. I don't know what he's doing either these days. Hopefully he didn't go the Joe route.
I don't know what that route is.
What is the Joe route? Yeah. I don't know.
Didn't he get accused of like match fixing or some shit?
Wasn't that Faith? The
Faith got
newbie
convicted, I thought.
No, he got convicted.
Wait, what happened to Joe?
Joe's the IG TI2 carrier, right? I'm thinking about the same guy, right?
Something happened to this guy. Maybe
it's a TI2 winner, yeah.
Yeah.
He stormed the river, etc.
Got it.
Well, Shadow last played on Team Serenity, so he seems good. But wasn't there? I remember there was this rumor that like Shadow was going to go and play with a European team. Was that you guys? I remember thinking it was like,
yeah.
Oh, he was talking to Team Secret at some point or something.
And then it became other teams later on. I think Forev talked to him back then, and then he tried to get on other teams. But again, I don't think the guy spoke any English, so I don't know if he speaks English now. But I think we've learned that lesson from Sumail joining Aster. Like, I don't know, man. I think people in Dota historically vastly underestimate the difficulty of culture and language barriers in a team. Doesn't mean you can't make them work, but people are just like, oh, like you can ping on the map. It's like, okay, yeah, and then you have a post game discussion. Is he pinging on the map in like the post game discussion? I feel like that only gets you so far, but maybe other people have had more successful experiences than I have. So.
No, I mean, I feel like even if you speak the same language, the culture alone can be a really big deal, like a thing to overcome.
Do you have culture problems on gaming? They don't respect the Kekona lifestyle.
We don't have problems, and we're all like, nobody's like, it's not like East and West combination type deal, but you know, like the Russian vibe is very different from the like Western European vibe or like an American vibe, right? There's definitely like a collision there. I think we generally like deal with it pretty well, and Anton's very amicable, and it all works fine, you know. But he's definitely a goober, and I'm also a goober in a different way, you know.
Can you nail that down a little bit more? What is the different vibes that we're talking about? Seeing as most of these players have played with some international players.
I mean, I think a lot of the difference that I've experienced comes down to like how comfortable people are with conflict and how like easily or openly they dive into that. Like I think I've played with players in the past, not necessarily Anton, but who like are super, like when they say stuff, it's like super cuts right to it. And to some people, it's like feels offensive, or they're like they feel attacked, even though that's not meant that way. I think Anton has like a little bit of that directness, but it's not like hurtful. And I think Anton always comes across as like he's just saying stuff. But I think it's also healthy. But some people aren't like capable or used to it enough to deal with like the super direct approach.
Okay, so what's the North American approach? Can I passive aggressive,
bitchy, motherfucker?
Avoid all conflict forever. Only harbor up deep, dark feelings inside of you, like some bottomless pit, some deep vault. You're like the Borderlands. You know, everyone wants to know what's inside this vault, and you'll never ever tell, and you'll die with this thing in secret. And the team will disband, and years later, you go on some podcast, or you'll be drunk at an after party and tell somebody about how this team was insane and this guy was the worst teammate ever. That's the North American way.
Sounds like eternal envy to a T. So, yeah, it sounds like most of my TI after parties were like, "Oh, what was the last team you played on?" It's some NA stack that was extremely toxic, and everybody thought it was toxic. But at the same time, everybody left that team going to another team, being like, "Oh yeah, I wasn't the problem." You know, it's like the other four dudes. It's like somebody's the fucking problem here. It's just endless mosh pit of emotional suppressiveness. I feel like that's the conversation I've had the most on NA teams is like, there's clearly a problem here. What's the problem, guys? And it's like, no, it's all good. It's like, no, this like you guys haven't looked each other in the eye for like 6 days. I feel like maybe, you know, something's going on. It's like, oh, we're chilling, we're bros. And then you just can't fix anything. So you're just screwed, you know.
And then they're both DMing you, being like, we gotta kick this fucking guy.
Yep, yeah. Oh, no, actually the NA Classic is the self kick. I don't know if I actually wanted to ask Aiden. Like, does this happen in European teams? Is there the self kick as much in European teams where the guy just comes to the team and instead of dealing with his problems, he's like, "Yo, I think you guys just need to kick me. I think I need to be removed for the team so that the team can go on." That is such an NA classic.
I've not experienced that many times.
That many times.
I'm trying to think if I've experienced it at all. Like if one of my teammates ever came to me and was like, "Hey, I think I'm the issue. You guys need to get rid of me." I've definitely been okay. I don't know if I've ever heard that actually. I've been on the other end a lot. Like there's issues in the team, like you said, people don't talk to each other. But then what ends up happening is you hear about, like I will hear about my offlaner's problem, like why my offlaner is toxic from my 4, but my 4 won't tell my offlaner. And you know, like you have this cycle of like nobody's telling each other what they actually think.
Yep.
And as soon as that one person's out of the room, the other 4 are like, yeah, this guy needs to do that better, and the guy needs to do that better. And like you just never talk to the person that's like you actually need to talk to. But I do think, for me at least, this has been a marker of my unsuccessful teams. And it's been something that hasn't really been the case in my more successful teams. And it's been like very, very clearly that way in all my teams that went to shit, kind of.
What about your Koifa Taiga version of Liquid? Because I heard that there was a very amicable sort of like everybody was kind of like, no, like maybe I need to be the one to go. Am I getting that wrong?
Such a stupid concept, dude. It's so dumb.
I don't think. I mean, I don't know. The way I remember it and the way I felt like it was like people kind of knew that it wasn't working as a whole.
Yeah.
And then everyone kind of said that if me and Will thought, you know, letting them go is the way forward, then they'll be cool with it and like no hard feelings, kind of. But I don't remember anyone saying like, I am the issue.
Sure.
Let
sure.
me go. Yeah.
All right, so
I don't
what's
remember it that
the-
way.
You've heard the NA vibe and the Russian vibe. What's the Western Europe vibe? As somebody who's played the most in Western Europe.
I don't know, to be honest. I mean, I feel like I've mostly been on Swedish teams the last few years. I remember prior to that, the teams are on were very international, and I remember very clearly having like issues with culture. But like, I'm not sure what the Western European vibe is. I feel like the Swedish vibe is like you don't really ever say things very directly. You word things very nicely, and you talk around the issue, and you hope that the person that you're talking to gets the hint. Kind of. I feel like it's like the Swedish way of approaching everything. You never really like you will never state what the issue is. Like if I think Cap smells bad, I'll just talk to Quinn about, showering is really nice. I love showering.
Yeah, we
I
should get
shower
some
twice a
candles
day.
for the
How
room,
often do you shower, Avery? And like that's just how you'll approach it. You'll be like, "Oh, Boxy, you want to see this cool thing this 5 did in my pub? He was playing the same hero we were playing in our scrims." Like I feel like that's like the Swedish way. And then like if that doesn't work, eventually you'll be like, "Hey, I don't know how you feel about this, but I had some thoughts that maybe, we could take a look at, and then you can tell me if you're comfortable with that or not." And then like it's like very soft, I think. But I think on Liquid we kind of got better about it and got more direct. But there's definitely like some of that Swedish culture, like in I guess like all 4 of us would say. I think now with Meta we're more like problem.
Net is pretty direct. I think that helps.
Meta's pretty direct, yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
Which
I think it's good.
you need
It's like
somebody
really
on the team,
important.
right, to do that.
No, it is good. I think like if we had one weakness last year, I think it's that we didn't talk about Dota enough as a team, or like we didn't play enough Dota, we didn't talk enough Dota, we didn't Dota enough. And I think that's partially due to the fact that nobody wanted to like poke at things. So yeah, no, Neta's great for that. Really, really good. I think he helps us like actually progress a lot.
Okay, so this actually comes on to a topic that I've thought about a couple times to talk to some people about, is the concept of forming a team. And since we have 2 captains here, and Quinn, you've been around for quite some time, have been on some different teams. I think Falcons, good example, right? You have some super org come in, be like, we pay shit tons of money for people. What is the process, do you think? How do you lay the right foundation, get the right pieces for a strong team?
I would like to say retired captain, first of all. No longer.
Okay,
But
you were a captain.
Sure. I mean, for me, it was always okay, not always, but for me, when we formed the original Alliance / Liquid roster, I really wanted a team where I felt like we could work together and you could progress, like you could move forward, and there would be like faith in that, like all the players have the potential to be like the best at their roles, and then on top of that, that it made sense. Like I wanted it to be 4 people that I could talk to. If I was like, okay, Max, you suck dick. This is like how you stop sucking dick. I wanted that kind of thing where like you had that environment, and that's what I was like looking for the most. Because when I first came to Dota, I was on a lot of like random teams, let's say, with a lot of people, and I feel like in every single team that I played on, there was the same problem of like people just couldn't talk to each other about whatever would happen inside the rosters. So I really felt like that was like the most important thing. And then like whatever skill stuff comes up, like I feel like you figure it out as you go along the way, like as you go along. As long as you have that kind of thing going. But I think on top of that, I also felt like I already had like Mickey, who I was like, this is my star. And I already had like some guy that I just wanted to build around. And I think having something like that is usually pretty important when you're starting off a roster.
One of you has to talk.
You're the captain. I'm giving way to my former captain. I'm just being
this podcast
polite.
is edited, just for the record, right? Like if
yes. If you say
All right.
something you don't want to end up having on the broadcast,
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you to go fuck yourself. But every other guest, I tell them, no problem, we can cut it out.
Well,
yeah.
I think
Put that in.
I mean, first off, my captain experience is biased because I did it in NA, and like the number one factor in building a team in NA is like you probably are choosing between like 6 dudes and you're choosing 5 of them. You know, like your options are very, very condensed and refined.
It's who's not making the team, not who's making the team.
Yeah, it's like let's limit the list down, and then you have like 3 dudes. And you're like, oh well, shit. Now we gotta go find somebody else capable of even playing.
You're choosing between Mojo or Sneyking, right? I get it.
I mean, the problem was that it actually was a big problem over time because there's certain situations where I remember talking with Jack about team dynamics, and it's like, how do you instill motivation or discipline within a team where people feel like they cannot get kicked because there is literally no alternative? Like, this guy just knows in the back of his mind, like, they're never going to kick me. No matter, I can work as little as possible. I can fuck off. I can be dog shit. And there's not that threat in the back of his mind of, like, they might go get another, like, offlaner from another good European team or something. Because there's just nobody. There's absolutely nobody. And they know this. So, like, sometimes that was actually a factor that we sat down and discussed. And we're like, is there an artificial way we can overcome this? Because I think I don't know if it directly created problems, but it was related to other problems we had. That said, I think the best captains are people that don't want to do it. I also think the best captains are the people that don't choose to do it. Now, those are 2 different things, because you can choose to do it and not want to do it. You can want to do it but not choose to. But I think it's both. So basically, it's a guy who gets forced into having to do it, and then once he starts doing it, he doesn't want to do it. I think those guys make the best captains. And if you look over the history of Dota, some of the strongest captains that have emerged on really good dynastic teams have just been thrust into that position against their will in times of dire stress, and they had no choice. And I think it creates a system of automatic respect. It creates a system of people uniting and coming together very quickly. And it creates a system of people understand the humbleness and the drive of this person doing it in a situation where it wasn't like, I want to be a captain and like the face of the team and do all of this shit. He's doing it out of necessity. And I think people ultimately have a very strong basis of mutual respect for that, which can build a really strong cornerstone of a team. And I think there's been numerous examples. I'm going to have to go through them, but like, I think of all these teams that formed really quickly under someone who became a dynastic captain but wasn't at the time and went on to very quick success. I think that is a very direct way to do it. Not the only way, of course, but like one that in Dota has been a re-emerging pattern. And that was the one that I fell into, at least for me initially, was like, I got kicked from EG. I had nowhere to go. I had nothing to do. I had no real backup, and it was like, I can either quit or I can build my own team. So I built my own team. But my thought process wasn't, I want to become a captain now, you know? It was like, I have to do this. And is there anybody else who's going to do it? Fuck no, there's nobody else who's going to do this. So it's got to be me. I better do it as well as I can, you know? So you start looking for the pieces. But I think that is usually a good recipe, if you can find that. Because I don't like these guys that come in and are like, I want to be a captain and like do all this shit and like, you know, it's like, I don't know, how are you just, it just feels artificial to me, in a way. I don't know how else to explain it. I think there's something organic about Dota compared to a lot of other esports. And I think it shows in a lot of the small things. Like, Dota players only respect other Dota players. They only respect people who have gone through Dota itself. That's why, like, Dota coaches are hard to find. That's why Dota players don't respect management and organizations at all, like, to it from a Dota perspective. You know, you can, like, respect an org in terms of like what Liquid does for Liquid, right? Obviously, I'm sure you guys respect that and appreciate it. But from a standpoint of like, if Liquid CEO or Liquid upper management came in and started telling the Dota team,
like the mind control Tundra situation,
right? Like, Dota players just flip out over that shit, and it goes back to part of this. It's like, they only respect people who have been where they are, put in the time they are, or been as good as they are at some time in the history of Dota, and that even fades over. So I think if you get a captain in that position, it just removes all of that risk and downside.
Okay, I think that was very perceptive. I really like the way you laid that out, but I will just point out that you said you weren't going to list any names. You didn't list any names, but then it essentially just made it seem like, and that's why I was a great captain.
No. I think at that time,
give me some examples.
No, for that time, for like that 6 months, it worked. That's what I'm saying. And I don't think I was good. I think that elevated me far beyond my capabilities at the time, which were very low. Like, that's what I'm saying, right? It made up for my deficiencies, which were really large at the time, and allowed us to find some short-term success. But then obviously, these things aren't necessarily long-term scalers. Like, a lot had to happen for us to scale that long-term, which didn't. We weren't good enough. We weren't as experienced at the time to make that happen. If I knew what I know now, maybe our chances would have been higher, but I didn't have any of that. So I was a terrible captain back then. But because we were in that position, like, that team actually united really fast. Because I had gotten kicked and was forming a new team. I brought in like the high ranked, super disgruntled dudes of the region, right? Yar, Sneyking, and Mojo were like really high skilled players, but they were all disgruntled because they had been like kicked from previous teams. Yar was like living in the shadow of his brother or some shit, I don't know. You know, Sneyking was like the most toxic reputation of any player in the world at that time. Like literally, I would go and talk to people and be like, "Have you played with this guy?" And they're like, "Don't message." Like people told me not to DM him, not don't play with him. Like, don't interact with this guy. Don't build a relationship. And I was like, can't be that bad. I played some pubs with him. He was good. I remember the first pub I played with him where I was like, holy shit, this guy is like on another level. He played Night Stalker in a patch where this hero was absolute dog shit. And he just ran around, made every call for the entire pub for like 40 minutes, went like 15-0. And I was like, okay, I mean, this guy's on my team, right? Because who else am I going to get in NA that makes any sort of shot calling? Nobody at the time. There was nobody. So that's why I picked him. That was invaluable. I didn't care. People told me he's toxic as fuck. I'm like, whatever, man. You leash the dog every once in a while. Sometimes you need that on a team. So you go with that. And then you get Rezo, who was also disgruntled because he got kicked from OG at that time, if you remember that squad.
Oh, yeah.
So he also was like, he wanted to prove something. So I'm saying when teams like that come together, I think it was like similar to like what happened to OG at TI8, right? Bunch of disgruntled dudes. You have Nailtail, who was forced into this suddenly like 5 captain role, who didn't want to be. The team unites behind their mutual hate for everybody else in the Dota scene because they only respect Dota players. So at the same time, it means you only hate Dota players. So like, it just forms really quickly and allows them to succeed. I think that's like, if you want some short-term burst that can maybe lead into something else, I think it's a good way to do it.
Can you guys list any other examples like that? Well, first of all, Aiden, Quinn, do you agree with that assessment?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of.
Yeah,
I think the general sentiment that like, I think it's hard to just come in and say I'm the captain. Like unless you like Puppey could do it, and I think he's the only one who could really do it because he had the track record. And I don't think I don't know if he started that way. I mean, I wasn't really playing back when he became like the guy, but there was a period where he was the guy for so long. Then he could be like, I'm the guy. And people were like, okay, yeah, you are the guy. And that was like, it was like you respected it, But like if somebody just randomly comes in, if I try to make my own team and I'm like, I'm Quinn, I'm the captain, like people like says who, Like I think it being organic goes a long way because this element of Dota teams being grassroots is very true. I think there's something Aiden said that really that I really resonated with is the at some point in a lot of players' careers, I think they look for this team that is like just a bunch of people they can talk to. Because like 8 years ago in Dota or 6 years ago, whatever, like there were so many teams where like there was one guy or two guys that were just like miserable to play with, or they were really toxic or whatever. And there were one or two guys on the team that were like really nice to talk to and chill. Or you had friends outside the team that were really chill to talk to. And so everybody, like there was a point in Dota where everybody started breaking up these teams and going and trying to find people they just liked playing with. And then I think you saw like longer lasting teams. You saw like Ligma and Secret and like, teams like this that like had like a sort of a base that stuck together for a long time because people wanted like the people they could talk to. They wanted like a group of people that was nice to be around. And to me, I think that is like, that's the biggest way Dota changed over time is names are still really important. But if you look back 6-7 years ago, names were all that mattered. That's it. Like nobody considered anything else. It's like, does this guy have a big name? He's on my team. Does this guy have a trash name? I don't care. He's a person. But like, I think the Miracle and Nisha and like there was a slow transition and Sumail, there was a slow transition of like people finding new people and teams sort of gravitating to like, okay, this guy, maybe he's not the absolute highest on the leaderboard, but I've talked to this guy and I like the way he thinks about the game and sort of like trying to find talent and find people who like clicked. I think the Dota scene got way more emotionally intelligent and like better at understanding like how chemistry in a team actually works. Because holy crap, the scene was so brain dead like 7-8 years ago. These teams were unreal. I'm sure all of us have a million stories about it.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree with all that. I think part of that is, I don't know if you guys agree, but I think part of that is also that Dota moved away from one superstar mid laner kind of like running the show or one superstar carry. Like the game evolved in a way that made it more team oriented and it made it like, or maybe we were just all bad and these like 5 people that like dominated us all these years were just like that much better than everybody else, which is also possible. But I feel like Dota also became more of a team game. And as the game became more of a team game, I think teams also became more teams rather than superstars with, ancient stackers.
Babysitters.
Yeah, ancient stackers and all that stuff. But yeah, no, I mean, I also agree with what SVG said about like, I thinking back to like how I started captaining, it was like kind of like the same thing. I was on like a pretty well respected team, and then I got the boot, and then I was really mad because I thought like they did me dirty, and then I started up my own team, and like, you usually get like the 4 people you get are not like your number one choice of players, let's say. It's like the people that are kind of available to you. And usually the upside of that is that these 4 people are really hungry and they think you're good because you're on a good team. Initially, at least. And then like over time, because I remember, okay, Zibit, he's like playing now.
Yep.
This guy, like, me and him played, he was on my, like, that team for me.
Okay.
But he respected nobody. He did not give a shit about anything. Like the other 3 players, they dream for me to speak words. They're like, "Oh, you're speaking? Everyone be silent. Let's hear what Aiden has to say." Zibba did not give a shit. He like could not care less about anything I said. And having him as a teammate, like it really helped me grow as a person and understanding that like, being a captain isn't just coming in there and everybody just serving you kind of. Because I think I had a little bit of that experience before him. And with him, I kind of had to learn to, how to talk to people to get like things to work and how to get teams flowing the right way. But yeah, no, I had a pretty similar experience, I think, to SVG when I started off. So I do agree with that part. And I think like usually you get the fire, you get the hunger. And if you manage to make stuff work in like the first few weeks, then good things will come. Otherwise, you'll end up having Kebab on your roster and switching players every 3 scrims.
Another classic.
Yeah, I think I went through 100 players in 2 months with Kebab on my team. Yeah, it was literally like we played 2 scrims. Nah, this guy, he will never be good. Okay. And Kebab was a big name back then. So I was like, all right, run it. I trust you. He has an eye for talent. Run it.
That he will never be good line is like a meme, but it's also funny because it's like there is a grain of truth in that like whenever you're making these like ramshackle like scraggle bag teams, like you're trying to find like who has this spark, like Avery said with Sneyking, like this guy, like nobody thinks this guy's good, but he's like talking nonstop in pubs, and this guy clearly has like a mind for the game, and maybe he's got a little dirt on him we got to rub off, but like there's something there, and like people were like looking for that. Does this guy gonna be good? Does he have the potential? Does he have the spark? They're looking for that spark.
Yeah.
What is this? He will never be good line. Well, I don't remember this.
Oh, Aiden just said it.
Oh, okay.
Like
okay.
It's just like I'm sure like you. I don't know. I feel like Quinn at least knows, but like you have usually in these shit rosters. Usually you had one guy, like you had a friend. That you and him, like we're gonna make this team good. We just need to find 3 other like dudes, and then the guy will always tell like you. He will tell you just like this one of these 3 guys that we got. He will never cut it, and then you replace that guy and you get a new guy. And then one of the other 2 is the issue. So you replace one of those guys, and then you get another guy. And then the 3rd guy is the issue. And then it's just like rinse and repeat. And like you'll always like after playing like 2 scrims, like someone will see like some mistake that they think is like, oh my god, I don't know, my Earthshaker missed the fissure. Like this guy will never be good at Dota. Like if he can't even do this simple task, like come on. Like why are we even bothering? Why are we wasting our time?
Yeah, and then you kicked Yatoro, and 8 years later, went on to win a couple of tournaments. That's how it goes.
In Kebab's defense, none of the players that we kicked during that period ever became good. So
maybe he was right then. I can tell you, I think every player I've ever kicked from one of my teams is now like a top 10 in the world. That's all I know. I remember there was a time when like Envy told me that too. I don't know if it was when I was on his team or something, or like when I got kicked from his team. And there was some quote that ended up in a discussion of like, you shouldn't be sad that you got kicked from, this was Team NP. It was like, you shouldn't be sad you got kicked from an Envy team, because everybody that Envy kicks goes on to have a great Dota career. And I remember this person telling me, and I was sitting there like, what kind of fucking logic is that? Like I was so sad at the time. I was like, I got kicked from this team. I didn't know what to do. And they're just like, dude, don't worry. That's like a good omen. You're gonna have great success now. But I guess that was like kind of true. So I don't know. Maybe there are like weird curses like that, Like players see players with potential, so they bring them on their team, but maybe they're a toxic individual themselves, or they have issues working with people, so then they kick them. So this roster of like players they played with but kicked just grows over time, but they're good at scouting people initially. So the chances from that pool that other people go on to have like good Dota careers is pretty high, right? So I think there is some truth to players like that, where they can't achieve success with them directly, but they know they are good, even if at the end they decide they're never going to be good. Internally.
Sounds like Quincy Crew.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
name any team from the last 10 years of my life, but it's just weird. I also wonder just how much of that is like you're only going to encounter players of a certain caliber in the first place, and the chances that a player at that caliber goes on to do something good at some point in their Dota history if they keep playing is like pretty high. Because there were a lot of players I encountered around like TI5 to TI7 that 4 or 5 years later, like TI11 to 12, whatever we're at now, are suddenly like hitting a prime, But back then they weren't that good relative to the pool. And I don't think you could have looked at them like, oh, this guy had potential, because there was no way to evaluate it. The game wasn't as structured. It wasn't as well thought out. You couldn't analyze players as well as I think people can nowadays. It was just like all a crapshoot kind of. And I just wonder how much of that is like how many of those players just statistically would have gone on no matter what, because that's why they were there. Like if a guy's coming up to you at TI6 asking you to be on your team, the chances that guy then succeeds at some point in the next 5 years are, I wonder what that is. I feel like people think it's low, but the more I think back on it, I actually think it's pretty high. Because he's there in the first place. It's like a selection barrier, Because I remember Netta asked me to add to the list. This was after TI8, I guess. The first one, OG one. Wait, did I ever tell you the LGD manager story, Quinn?
I don't know if you did.
Did I tell you this one, Austin?
I don't think so.
Oh, this is all right. I'll tell that. That is a tier 10 story that is absolutely true. Let me finish my Netta point though. So after that TI, Netta came up to me, and it was that he was just known as like he had a name before 33 or something. Right?
Yeah, I don't know if
we don't need to get into it.
Yeah,
you might
whatever.
It's a South Park character. Yeah, let's put it that way.
Yeah, but yes, yeah, I will not name it. Now it comes to my mind. I remember, but it was when he switched from that to like 33, which was also when he was switching from like he used to play 4 back in like CIS region. He was playing like Eastern Europe 4 position. He was like an Earth Spirit spammer or something, and people were like, "Oh, this guy's like pretty good," And I knew that was all I knew about him was like, and then I saw him at that TI. So this is a couple of years after that, I think. My only other interaction with him. And he was like transitioning to offlane, and that was when he was starting to build up like the zoo spam. And I remember the discussion that I had with Jack when we were considering offlaners at that time. Was like, what about this guy? And it was like, well, this guy just like spams zoo, dude. Like super limited hero pool, like zoo wasn't even useful back then. No one was playing it. It was like, why are we gonna like chop off one of our legs to give ourselves a player that might pan out in like a couple of years when it's like awful for the current meta and we don't know how to use them and our other team has problems. So like we passed on him, but it wasn't like a reflection of us not seeing potential. And then it's like 5 years later, it's like, oh, zoo meta in Wraith Pack and he wins a TI. It's like, could have you ever seen that? It's impossible. There's no way. But obviously, I feel like he was gonna find his success based on what he was doing and what he was building, no matter what, no matter who it ended up with, right? Like he would have hit a prime at some point. That's how I feel now. I don't know what team would have been on. Maybe he wouldn't have gotten Tundra. Maybe it would have been 2 years later. Maybe it would have been 2 years earlier. Maybe, you can always get unlucky and nothing ever happens. But I feel like the players that are on those pathways that start moving up teams and continue to get better and better, like eventually will find it in Dota. Because there isn't that much that inherently stops you, I guess, other than just bad luck. Which, yeah, there's there's some dudes that probably should have gotten it that never did. But anyway, the LGD story. This is a tier 10 story. That TI, OG versus LGD, the dream run for OG that nobody thought they would make against the Goliath LGD. They're in that lower bracket. Now, if you remember, LGD had been like on the brink of getting a TI victory for a lot of TIs. They had wanted this for a really long time. I mean, I guess I can tell the story too because the franchise is like gone now or whatever. They're disgraced, so I don't really care. But we go outside, everybody's smoking outside the arena. It's after game 3, which is when LGD went up 2-1. They won game 3, it was pretty dominant. We go outside, LGD manager's there, talking with a bunch of people. they're just like, we just walk by, we just hear him talking because Jack's there as well. And basically the vibe is like, damn, we're finally going to win it this year. It's like, this is the year that LGD breaks the curse and we get first place. We're finally going to pull like, they were so hyped. And I remember that moment because it was like, at that point, everybody thought OG were done. It was like 2-1 LGD. They're closing out the series. LGD management were just like, finally, we have won a TI. And that's the last thing I ever heard from them for that tournament. It was just straight after that. It was just like probably one of the biggest upsets of all time, right? So I think that is one of the moments that I still have in my memory that I take away of like, one, never get cocky, because then the swift hand of karmic justice slaps your ass down. That happens a lot in Dota, unless you're Seb. And then two is that
What does that mean?
I don't even know what the second lesson
What
is.
does
It's
that
just
mean?
some people are unlucky. You know what I'm saying? Like I think LGD, maybe lucky is a bad term, but like I don't know whatever happened to that guy. I guess now we know what happened to LGD over the course of the last few years. You know, if they'd won that tournament, maybe they go in a very different direction. You just can't know your future.
Wait, so am I missing something? Why is LGD disgraced? What's happened?
Oh, they just like didn't pay players and the org's disbanded now pretty much.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, there have been rumors about that for a while, that there's a lot of shady shit that has gone on with like their CEO and stuff like that. I guess some of that is just coming out to light. All right, well, we got 3 different things we're going to talk about. We got there's this quote from Malik about the Hawk and his coaching. We got the Sammyboy versus Pakaz stuff to talk about, but I think the first thing we'll go over is the ESB. I don't know if you guys are watching this at all, but the ESB tournament that's going on, I mean, you guys are going to be playing on it, right? Both of you are going to be playing in it. You guys are both directly invited, but it's in a stage before that right now where they have 16 teams that were invited to play in this Swiss stage. It's actually very similar to what Counter-Strike does with their tournaments. They do where it's kind of like this opener Swiss stage, and then they cut the teams in half, and then they combine that half with like 8 of these these directly invited teams, and then they put another Swiss stage together, and then they cut that in half. So they're kind of doing something similar here, where the initial Swiss stage with 16 teams cuts it in half, and then those will join the directed invited teams, all the big names, Liquid, Gaming Gladiators, Azure, those guys. They're all going to be put into a regular, like 2 groups of 8 group stage that's going to happen. So it actually makes it so there's a little bit of variety in that regard. And then that'll be cut in half, so it's an 8-team playoff. So the first thing I was curious is, it's been a while since we had Swiss group stages. Do you guys like Swiss at all?
It was Kiev Major.
Yeah, long time.
I wasn't good enough to be at those events, so I don't know from personal experience. I don't actually think I've played like a high stakes Swiss tournament ever.
Did you play PGL Bucharest?
No.
That was the last Swiss tournament I played. It was during the Optic DPC. That was the last.
I think we were on Alliance back then, so we probably didn't make many events.
Yeah, maybe.
No, I don't think we were. I don't think I played in Bucharest actually ever.
Okay. I mean, I think the format's pretty fun though. I think it's just a change of pace is nice, especially when there's so many like random tournaments aren't part of DPC. Like you don't need it to all be the same format, right? Because you don't need like uniformity. Sorry, that's what I was looking for. Like you don't need it to be uniform, right? Because it's not like a league or something. It's just different tournaments. So to me, like different formats, and you give more teams a chance to play, right? You see there's a bunch of teams that like you don't see very often, and they're playing against like teams that are maybe a lot stronger from, you know, some other different region. Like I think that's cool seeing like the sort of tier 2 to maybe 3 of like inter-regional play. That's like that doesn't really happen, and the Swiss like allows that to happen, which is cool.
Yeah, no, I think it's actually the first thought I had when you were like comparing it to the way CS does things. It's really cool that in this year where there's basically nothing for the tier 2 scene, that this is like an opportunity that if you're a sharp team, like here, go prove it, you know? And the odds are not that bad at like qualifying to the, I mean, you said half the teams, right?
Yeah.
Out of what, 8-4 qualify or something?
Yeah, so it's going to
Out
be
of
16 teams,
16.
8 of them get to qualify, and then
Yeah.
they play in another group stage where it's 2 groups of 8.
Right. So I feel like that's like a really cool opportunity for like a lot of teams. So big props on that. The last thing I remember from Swiss events was the secret, like they owned everyone. And then they lost round 1 because it was single elim to like the South American team at the time, who got literally last place in the Swiss stage. And I remember myself thinking, damn, Swiss is a stupid format at the time. But yeah, that's the only thing I remember.
And then
That was a crazy tournament.
it'll still go into playoffs with double elimination playoffs, so it still kind of has the traditional Dota tournament aspect on it. But yeah, I would agree. I like the variety. It also means any teams that qualify, like half the teams in this Swiss stage, jump up. It doubles their prize winnings from 10K to 20K. So pretty decent chance, as you said, for a tier 2 team to kind of show up and do well. Have you guys watched any of the events right now? Because it's pretty much we only have 2 more rounds left. So as a result, there's already some teams already qualified in Boom Esports and Entity, and already some teams eliminated like 9 Pandas. And speaking of Zibe, he plays on Rest Farmers, who is the other team that has already been eliminated.
I think the Boom. Yeah, I have been watching. I think the Boom 3-0 is pretty surprising. I don't think anybody would have predicted that, to be honest.
I mean, they're a team of good players. They just haven't looked so good, I feel like, ever since forming. But Pakaz was a beast.
Yeah, I mean, it's Pakaz Panda from Thunder Predator, and then it's like 3 dudes who you play within NA pubs for like 10 years or whatever. I mean, it's weird coming from NA when you see because there was a period where SA had like 2 teams. It was Beast Coast and it was Thunder Predator, and they had the same players for like 3 years. It was Chris Locke and all these dudes, and like everybody else was on like these terrible teams that could never beat them. They could just never ever beat them. I don't think they ever did one time. And then for whatever reason, those 2 teams broke apart, and now there's like these other random players. Like this Illich guy, I think is actually pretty decent. I play with him in some pubs and stuff. Like I think this guy actually has quite a bit of potential. And I hadn't like played with him or like because I hadn't played in NA pubs in a long time, but I played up some EU pubs with this guy because he's here. And I was like, okay, wow, this guy's actually not bad at all. And I think that's the case for some of them. So I think that sort of goes back to the Swiss thing. That's like, it's cool, like this Boom team, like, before, like a couple of years ago, they're not making it out of qualifiers, but now they get to play some tournament and they're like, suddenly they're 3-0. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, they took down Quest, Secret, and Talon. So some pretty big names in there. I think taking down Quest immediately was pretty impressive.
I was just gonna say, but do they play out the final? Like, do you get like, because the cool thing about Swiss, right, is that you get like the 4-0 team versus the other 4-0 team. Does that happen in this or no? They're just like they're 3-0.
No,
it's
done, right?
3
and you're in.
Okay, they need to fix that, because that's the most hype part of Swiss is that you get like a grand final of the 2 greatest teams before there even is a grand final. And
you get the giga losers.
I mean, we don't need to do the other side of it, but like you get the grand final. You get the 3-0 versus the 3-0. Because I would be curious to see like how would they match up. Of course, as players, like it would be totally pointless, and I would hate to play that. But as a spectator, like I don't know, put like put a Honda on the line. Like the winner gets a Honda of that series.
Damn.
Yeah, it's a good car. You guys should check them out.
Dude, hey, do you just have a list of your sponsors somewhere? You're just I'm gonna work that one into the podcast.
I did not even think about the fact that Honda's one of our sponsors.
Oh right, sure.
Yeah, more of a Mercedes man, honestly. If they're listening, if you want a sponsor, you just let me know. I'll hook you up. I think your cars are great and they do work. I think they should make the worst 2 teams from Swiss play the Giga last for their airplane tickets. And the team that loses has to buy their own tickets back. That would be hype. You know how hard those players are trying there? Management just staring them down from back. We need more stuff like that in Dota.
How about the winning team gets to rebook their flights? I assume they're flown out to Europe, right? All these teams?
Oh, yeah, you get business class?
No. You get to, because, a lot of people, when they lose, they want to fly home, right? That was like a thing.
Oh, you're saying like
so
that.
You get to rebook your tickets, which a lot of times you don't get to. How about that? Incentive right there.
Big motivational factor.
That's a pretty solid incentive.
Like you just want to go home.
Yeah, but if in this situation, if you're the Giga loser, shouldn't you be sticking around Europe to play to like keep scrimming and stuff while you've got access to all of these really great teams?
Little bro, you okay? Imagine like you just lost 20 pubs in a row.
Uh-huh.
What is the last thing that you want to do?
Lose a 21st pub. So I make sure
Exactly.
I
So
win that 21st
home. You want
pub.
to fly home. You want to fly home, dude.
Yeah, teams are too emo after they lose, and also nobody left in the tournament who's playing there, and your region wants to play you because you're the worst team. So nobody wants to scrim you because they're like, we're not going to get anything out of
That's
this
also
practice.
true.
So they just ignore you. So it's like it can actually be hard. Unless you're a
Dude,
really good team that just flopped out, and people are like, all right, we'll still play.
They should do like a reality TV Swiss tournament, like the 1-0 teams, like you get punishments and rewards like every time you win or lose. Like you win a series, it's like, all right, now you get air conditioning. You lose a series, like they take your bed out the room, and like I don't know, they just keep like I don't know, the risk get richer.
I thought we already did that at TI10. Remember
tear
Team
your
Spirit
carpet
in the little room?
Well, that's getting edited
Shots
out for
fired.
sure.
Shots fired.
That's not leaving that, and I can guarantee you that.
I'm leaving that one in. I don't care.
I would not leave that one in. I would like to work at Future International.
We already
so.
casted finals, all right? I already achieved the goal. It's
Let's
already
edit
done.
that out. Let's edit that out. If Valve are watching, I think that was a phenomenal tournament. For the record, I had a great time. Very much enjoyed.
Spirit had a great time too, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean they
Once
got
they
won the whole
got
thing.
their little kitchen.
Yeah, I also really enjoyed that TI. I got to be in a grand final
True.
of TI.
Yeah, true.
That's true.
Dude, it
No,
rained
I-
every day. Sorry,
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, all good. I'm interrupting everybody today. I would just like to add on to the Illich guy because I also think he's great. And I remember during our I'm so bad with the TI numbers, but the last TI, the one in Seattle,
12?
during our
12.
boot camp, I remember we were scrimming, and sometimes it's a hard time. Like you have a hard time finding scrims because we flew out to NA pretty early. And I remember we scrimmed this like South American team. I had no idea about any player. It was like 5 names I've never heard of, and this guy was like kind of dumping on us. Like he was just owning us. And like when someone owns you, I don't know if you guys do the same thing, but I cannot always like go open their profile. Like, who is this guy? Like, what is this dude?
Yeah.
And then I ended up like not finding anything on his profile, so I went to like Wikipedia and I googled him. I'm like, hey, who the hell is this guy? Never heard of this dude. But I remember I had like a very similar experience with the same guy, which is kind of cool. I feel like it's always fun when like someone else also feels that way. Like when you play against someone, you're like, damn, this guy's good, but he's kind of unknown. And then
That's how Collapse was. Before the TI Spirit won, dude, everybody was like, dude, this Collapse guy, he's like the best Mars I've ever seen. Like you heard that? I heard that from like 14 individual people in separate conversations. You're messaging about on Discord, about how's the weather? I like pizza. This guy's dude collapses Mars. Like it just kept coming up.
that's so fun. We actually scrimmed them so much that year. I remember like we would always scrim Spirit and VPP, the team that went on to become VP during that TI. Those are like our 2 main scrim opponents like the entire year. And I remember thinking like this Collapse guy was always like it's just his laning. I feel like usually when you play against someone, you can tell by the way they move if they're like really good. And like the way they aggro the creeps. It's just like this like detail stuff. It just gives you a feeling like this guy really knows what he's doing. And then you like open up his nickname, like Till I Collapse. Alright, it's a fucking Eminem song. Like who is this? Some random ass like, CIS clown that I'll never see again. And then they just turn out to be some of
the
goats.
best ever.
Yeah.
And then you casted his TI win. Yeah.
Yeah.
I lost to him. It was a great time all around.
Yeah, I remember we were in the Kiev major, a different Kiev major than the other one, not the Swiss one. And we were playing with Sumail at the time, and we had to like beat Spirit in a best of 1 in order to qualify out of groups. And we were like, there's no way. Who are these guys? Literally 2 months later, they're TI10 champions worth like $5 billion each. It was like, all right, I guess they're not that bad. Give them that.
Yeah, they kicked you out of was that Stockholm? Was that the Stockholm major? Or sorry,
No,
you said
Zana major.
Kiev.
Yeah.
Oh
Zana
yeah.
major.
That's right.
The funny thing is, I remember some of the moves that they did because I downloaded that best of 1 replay and I watched it to death. And I remember they were doing some of the exact same moves because I feel like at TI10 they were like the kings of the comeback, or at least that's like that was my feeling. Like they would always like kind of just drag the game out, and then they would like find a way to like fight their way back into the game. And I feel like they learned those things that they did at TI during our best of 1 because I didn't see it before in any of our scrims, but I only saw it like after. And I noticed like till this day they still do it. Like whenever I play scrims against them or play officials against them, I know like if they're behind, this one specific thing is gonna happen in the game that I don't want to get into because I feel like it's a competitive edge that I have. And they still do it. And it's really cool. I feel like these things Spirit's a cool team. I don't know how I started talking about this. Sorry. I sidetracked.
Oh, it's fine. Now we all just know to go back to that one replay and watch it to death to learn something about Team Spirit. Anything else about ESB? I don't think so, right? It's just a little update on the tournament.
I have a fact about Team Spirit. I don't even know if Quinn knows this.
Oh.
But at TI10,
fact?
at TI10, we played them in the group stage on the third day. And I remember this because on the third day, we were in the dumps and we were trying to rally our team, and they were the first match of the day. And I remember looking, and I was like, guys, this team is 1-7. They went 1-7 in the first 4 series of the groups. And they were going up against us. I'm like, this team is Garbo, guys. Like, they are about to flunk out of this tournament. They don't know what they're doing. They're picking random shit. Like, we are going to smoke them because we have momentum. We talked about what we want to do. We go in that series, we get fucking 2-0 in like 50 minutes. And then they went on to win every game for the rest of that group stage, I think. And then I think every series in the entire lower bracket after they dropped down. So in some way, were we the spark that they needed? If you think about it,
Dude,
they were about to drop. They were about to drop out of the
unreal.
tournament. If we beat them in that series, they might never exist because they'd be 1-9. They would have just like almost been eliminated. They would have been under so much pressure for those final matches. But of course, we were terrible. I also remember Collapse played Night Stalker, which was not a very meta hero.
Yes, we got
and he had like a 30-minute strength blink or something. And I was like, who the fuck built strength blink on Night Stalker back then? I mean, this is like 4 years ago. He just kept blinking on my ass. It was miserable. But, my point is that in our misery, something great was born. And that's the cycle of Dota. That whenever you suffer, somebody else gets to move up. And it's like a rebirth of the natural cycle of nature,
So Pakaz recently, there was a little bit of drama that happened between him and Sammyboy, which where is there not drama with Sammyboy? But this one is not necessarily anything to do with Sammyboy's making. So they were playing in a match against each other, Leviathan versus Boom in the qualifier for South America. This Leviathan team, if you guys haven't checked it out, it's a weird mix of players. Sammyboy, KP, Taiga, and then Stinger, and then I forget. You guys know the mid laner. I've never seen him before.
He's a pub player. He's Templar Assassin Dragonite player.
Oh, okay.
Ooh.
Stoikov.
Wait, I remember him as a Tusk player.
He was probably ganker class during the Tusk patch. He plays Templar and Dragonite a lot.
I see.
It's like rank 40.
So they're playing in some sort of match where it was a longer game and Leviathan was losing, but they started to make a comeback and they actually won some massive team fight, and they actually wiped the entirety of Boom. And as they killed Pakaz disconnects and is unable to reconnect. And I figured you guys had seen about this because I saw a decent number of players put out some tweets about like, oh, well, you're losing like having some sort of problem with the game, just disconnect and say you can't reconnect, right? Because, that maybe, like, I don't want to say because I'm sure he had some sort of problem. There was like Valve, I think it was like on a Tuesday. So there was like the regular updating that was going on. So I'm certain that he actually did have a problem with reconnecting, but this is a problem that has come up a number of times. And I feel like there's no real way to be able to assess.
There is.
There is? Okay.
You literally, the guy, you have him Discord screen share him trying to reconnect the game and unable to connect.
Okay, sure.
No. Okay, I think for sure he could not reconnect because I remember I could not play pubs during this time.
Yeah.
I'm just saying if Austin's like, you need a way to confirm that that's actually what the player's doing instead of them faking it. I feel like
no, but isn't the problem if he disconnected on purpose? Because that's what I feel like. I remember like people were saying, "Oh, he just rage quit the game." Like, no, because let's say he got mad, he rage quit the game. and then he's gonna reconnect. I don't know, but I remember reading comments like this on Reddit. I have no idea if it's true or not, or if that's the kind of guy he is. Like, you guys know the NASA players better than I have no clue, but I feel like that's the tricky part, right? Like, you just DC from the game, and then like you can't reconnect because it's Valve Tuesday. Unlucky, you guys. I guess we have
Tuesday.
to reset the game. Yeah.
Well, so this happens. They go on some really long pause. There was instantly all. I didn't go through the full replay, but I did watch the point where he disconnected, and there was like instant like all chat between both teams. So there was obviously some grudges going on there already.
Why does Sammyboy have beef with like every player on the entire planet? Like, where does this come from? Is he just angry? Is like, I've talked to the guy. He seems chill, and then every tournament he plays in, every series, somebody hates this guy. The entire enemy team hates him. Viewers hate him. He hates somebody else. Like, this guy he's just a beef factory, man. He's just manufacturing shit all the time. I feel like he enjoys it.
That's where global warming came from.
But I don't know what it's like done. I don't know what it's doing exactly. I don't know what the end goal is. You know what I'm saying? Like, what is his end goal with all of this that he's creating? Is it just he enjoys it, or?
I mean, he's obviously a provocative person. I mean, he had the whole Kanye 2020 flag in his background. Yes. I remember.
Yeah, that's
something like this. Something like this, I understand. There's like there's a play issue, whatever. It's not unreasonable, but like, why is he always in the center of this stuff?
Well,
it's just a persona. Somebody's going to be in the center. You know, he decided, I'll be in the center of the ring. It's a dirty job, but someone's got to do it. It's sort of like being a captain, you know.
But did he have to do it? I don't understand. Like,
he wasn't.
Who made him do it?
It was thrust upon him.
By who?
Birthright. The ether. I don't know.
It's his divine right.
There can be no Avengers without a Thanos in the world. You know, someone's got to do it.
Yeah, I thought that was Quinn for like the last 2 years. We don't need.
I'm off that train.
What happened? You just gave that up, or what?
Quinn's Loki. He's reformed.
Okay. He's reformed.
I'm done with that.
Well, who's gonna be the next evil villain then?
Sammyboy.
Oh, okay. Well, he's doing great then, I guess.
So they ended up having a remake after like a 40-minute pause. They remake the admin tells them that everything's gonna be fine. I think there's no way the admin can guarantee that, and I think most people know when you remake these games, like things like the creeps are no longer there. That happens all the time. I feel like that happens every single remake. Right? Yeah. It's like it's always gonna break in some way, and it does break. So the heroes everybody's alive, and there are no creeps. No creeps spawned. No creeps are on the map, and so the game resets in a spot that is not good for Leviathan, because they were at a point where they just wiped the enemy team and they were on top of the enemy tier 2. I think they still, like, their creep wave was like halfway through the map or something like that, so there was still a little bit of delay. They come back and they're in a much worse scenario than they were in. The admin, which is good thinking on his part, he manually count down. He manually does the death timer. So he has all of Leviathan, Boom, sitting in their fountain and tells them when they can leave the fountain. There are 2 players. I actually went through it. There were 2 players who did leave the fountain and got like a little bit of a jump start. Sammyboy posted it. He obviously has a problem with Pakaz, as seen from the all chat between the 2. But he said Pakaz exited the fountain 2 seconds before the admin led him, and he was like, well, this constitutes as cheating, which I think, maybe technically is. I think Knight also left a little early, though he was the first person out, so maybe it was just like misunderstanding in that regard. But yeah, so he makes there's this post on Reddit that was about it, and then Sammyboy himself makes a post on Reddit about it, basically calling them out for cheating and saying that they should have been DQ'd. So I wanted to get your guys' thought on that, because it is a messy situation in that remakes are not going to be perfect and almost never have been in Dota.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, you play on, man. I mean, I always had the opinion you just play on. Like, shit happens, It sucks, but like in the grand scheme of things, one game or one series, especially in like lower quals or whatever, when your team forming isn't going to change your entire career trajectory. So you just take the good and the bad. Like you'll probably get favored at some point in a similar situation at some point elsewhere. I don't know. They're just weird. Like I remember it happened on LAN once. There was a major where we got DC'd and I had to go in the hallway with Puppey. Did I tell you the story? I don't know. I get caught up in these, but I had to go. Like both teams DC'd and then the game continued playing for like 60 seconds or something. So
60 seconds? Holy
like 30
crap.
seconds? I don't know. It was a decent amount of time. So a bunch of shit happened. Like Yawar just died on like Morphling or something. And like somebody else, like one of our towers, I think Puppey's offlane tower took like half HP. And then, so there's a bunch of big shit that happened. And then they managed to pause the game. But it was like, what are we doing when we go back in the game? Similar kind of concept. Like, okay, so so we went outside, we debated this little powwow. Me and Jack versus Puppey and CyborgMatt. One side definitely a bit stronger than the other at that time, you know. A bit more tournament influence, I might say. But we agreed that like they would, because Yawar had died for free, they were going to sacrifice their highest net worth hero because he was our highest net worth hero, which ended up being Mid One. And I remember Mid One was like super pissed about it. He's like, I don't want to die. Like my game's going great. I'm not just going to die. So, but he ended up doing it. So he like ran down mid and suicided to even it out. But I remember it was like a big deal because Puppey was really upset about. He was more upset about his tower taking a bunch of damage. And I remember he said like he literally said, well, if that game hadn't been paused, I would have shot called in the game. I would have told Fada, who was their offlaner at the time. I would have told Fada to like go up there and die for that tower damage, or like, you know, stop the wave and like prevent this because it's like really important tower damage. And I was just like, okay, yeah, maybe, but like what? Like I don't like. I'm just supposed to take your word, like. But the thing is, it's Puppey, so it's like, well, yeah, he probably would have done that. You know, I'm not gonna sit there and disagree with the guy. But I don't think there was any resolution to that. I don't think the admin was like, well, we're gonna like give you tower damage somewhere else. It was just a really weird situation. And we ended up getting crushed anyway. But that's what I'm saying. Like, you know, you can figure all this shit out, but I feel like the better teams eventually just win. And like, I don't know. Didn't they lose to the same team in the upper bracket of that qualifier?
No, they lost in the lower bracket to a worse team.
Oh, so they had other problems, right? That's my point. Like, I feel like the energy you expend on these things, unless it's blatant cheating, it ends up just hurting you more. You're better to just take the L and move on and just be like the better team and focus on yourselves. That's how I feel. Unless it's blatant cheating. You actually know someone's cheating.
Leaving the base early is sus.
Yeah, that's sus. That's definitely sus.
That's definitely cheating. Now,
yeah, that's an issue.
Is it hard to get? Is it going to be hard to get them DQ'd for that? Yeah, but is it cheating? Yeah, that's cheating.
Yeah, he said it was 2 seconds. I feel like I timed it out to more like a second, and you know, some numbers there, not like definitely not a full 2 seconds, but he definitely left before the admin said something. And again, the first player left. He was kind of like running around his throne basically, so he had kind of like a little bit of a jump start there as well. But yeah. Aiden, you got anything?
I mean, the thing is, I feel like I agree, but I feel like I would agree in a non-emotional state, which is me looking at it now. Yeah. Where like the ideal way to do this is like, you know, just drop it, move on. All good, shit happens, you know, like just because like, you know, we're friends and we're honest here. We had some grand finals against Gladiators for like, you know, game 1. There was like 12 pauses. And I do remember like getting frustrated, you know, like that you lose the momentum, like it just like the game just isn't the same. When I don't know, like for viewers, you guys probably like can't feel this, but for players, I think it's universal that when you pause the game, your feeling for the game is different. It's not the same as when you're really into it. Like, I could go on and on. I have a long story about this, but whatever, we'll keep it short. But yeah, and I feel like in those moments, you will be upset. And I feel like if you feel like the team is cheating, and they are,
you're gonna be livid.
You're gonna be livid. Like, you're gonna be really upset about it. And especially like, because if I remember this game correctly, they're kind of getting pumped all game long, and then they're kind of clawing their way back, and they're getting this comeback going, and like, you know, they get the team wipe, and then this guy disconnects, and like, all I want to say with this, all this is that I understand like their emotional frustration and anger, and like their feeling of like justified anger towards like, how could you guys cheat? Why are you disconnecting? Like, you know, like I understand that, But at the same time, I really agree with Quinn and SVG that like, if you're in that position, the best thing you can do is try to like detach from that emotion because it will not bring you anything good. Like you can tell the admins, I think they cheated. Admins are like, all right, we're not going to DQ them. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to play on for. And your best chance of winning the game from that point onward is resetting your emotions and going back to zero, which is extremely hard to do. I know, but it's like what you owe yourself and your teammates to do in that position, to try to do it. It should be your goal. And that's that.
We had a similar, I mean, not the same, but a similar situation in Lima for the first series we played. It was like the AC was broken, and there was some other crap happening, so we couldn't start the series. It was us against Aster, and we were in the booth for like an hour and a half. It was like, I'm not even like, the game hadn't started. We were in the booth for an hour and a half. We're just like dying. It's so hot. It was unbelievable because the AC didn't work. And at some point, we're like looking across at them, and we're having a conversation in the booth. Like, don't like. The thing is, they're miserable too. They have to pee too. It's okay. Like, I know we all are like sweating bullets. And we have to pee. But it's all right. Like, they need to too, and we care less than they do. So we're gonna win because they need to pee more. And like that, there's some, you can take some solace in that, and it actually has a really like tangible impact.
We've had that exact, like we've done the exact same thing. We said the exact same stuff. Whenever like
they have to pee more.
yeah. Like they're guys, they're tilting more than we are. Don't worry about it. It's all good. And then like you'll hear Nisha like salty say, "No, I'm tilting more than them." He just whispered into his microphone. You can barely hear him saying it. But yeah, I definitely remember Zai saying these things too.
All right, so we got, I think, two options here as we do kind of need to wrap it up. Do you guys have anything to say about the Hawk thing, this quote that Malik has about the Hawk coaching? Do you guys know either one of these players at all? You have anything to say about it?
I don't really have that much to say. I'm
Okay.
more curious about why the Sney tweeted about it. Why did Sney tweet?
Oh,
That also-
sorry, it was Skiter.
Skiter. Yeah.
Sorry, I wrote the wrong name down in the
Skeeter.
notes.
Why did
Yeah.
Skeeter
They
tweet
must
about
have
it?
some beef. That was also.
They must
I saw
be
that
beef.
I just saw it on my timeline. And I was like, "What is this tweet? What is this shade?"
Okay,
It's so random.
so for the audience, we'll put it up on the screen as well. So the quote is, "The Hawk greatly limited us as players. There was a feeling that only his opinion was taken into account." This is a quote from Malik about the Hawk when he was coaching their team. Whatever. Skiter sees this and he tweets it. He says, "Arg, I hate when coach limits my true potential."
Maybe he might just be memeing at Aoi. Actually, I could also see that being the case. That he's just like, it's just like a meme with Aoi.
Yeah, that's very
But
possible.
it's definitely not. I feel like there's no way.
Really,
There's
I think it's possible.
definitely beef. No, I feel like there's beef, dude. There's definitely. We need to bring Skeeter on our next episode,
I mean, Skiter would be a great guest. He's good to talk to.
dude. We need to ask him. I need to know because I feel like there's beef. Because it's so random. It's okay. These are my theories. All right, either it's beef, or it's
Okay.
ego from winning too many events. Might be. It might be.
The Falcons.
Like they went to events. Yeah, and now he's like, I'm hot shit. I have opinions on everything, and my opinion matters. Which, because it's Skeeter, it would be really funny if I wish it was ego, because I feel like the humble arc would come in after as well.
Mm.
But I think it's beef. I don't think it's ego, and I don't think it's a poke at Aoi. That's
Maybe
my
so.
theory. I don't know. Yeah,
I don't know either of those players, so I
nothing
ain't got
else.
no clue.
Yeah, same.
Aiden, I do kind of want to hear your story about you said it's kind of a long story. You want to just wrap it up on that?
Oh, okay. So at TI Matu, Singapore, 11,
Mhm.
10, 11?
11.
11. Yeah. We had a game against OG, yeah, where Misha disconnects, and he accidentally abandons instead of reconnecting, and then he abandons the game on accident, and since we're like, I don't know, 30 minutes into the game or something, we're getting kind of owned, but not really. It's like we're not getting owned enough to where we would be down to say like, oh yeah, GG, you guys won the game. But we were kind of getting owned, and then this game pauses, and Valve has to like figure out a way to hack their own servers to implement some code to then get me. It was some really cool fix that they came up with, but it only took like 2.5 hours or so. of us sitting like inside of a hotel room with the game just paused. And I mean, this game's on YouTube, so everyone watching this can go like find the game. It's OG versus Liquid group stage at TI11. You would not believe the game that was played after this pause. Like it was like literally you put 2K MMR players in that server and you just let them play the game out because the feeling for the game was entirely gone. Like if you watch some like hype team fight, you know, you'll see like these like super high skill players or like it's pixels, you know, from being out of position or being inside like in position and like not getting instantly blown up compared to like, you know, it's just like how you position yourself in a fight and stuff is like a lot of it comes from feeling and like the momentum of the game and how like stuff are building up. And after 2.5 hours, that was completely reset. So you would have like, I don't know, like Amar just run into SF and get SF ulted and just blown off the screen. Like you'd never seen anything look clownier than that. And you're like, why is he doing? Like, is he stupid? Like, what is he doing? But like for us to play, it was so weird. I remember like there's some team fight that happens close to our triangle that is like the clowniest fight I've ever seen. Nobody has any clue of their limits. Nobody has any clue of like how far they can go. Nobody has any clue of how much damage any hero deals. Like all of it's reset. It's like it's as if you took a game, you gave like the game started and you just gave everybody rapiers. And you just see people just exploding. And it's super random. And like obviously this favors us because like they have a gold lead and we just keep trading kills. And we just keep like closing the gap when we had like a better scaling draft or something, I think. Don't quote me on that, I don't remember. And then we end up winning the game, and it was like the most undeserved win ever. And the best example of why like pausing games is super grief. Especially when it goes longer than a set amount of time. Because I think the smaller the window, the less like the feeling goes away, I guess. I don't know how to put this properly. But with the 2.5 hour pause, it's literally like as if you're starting a new game.
Yeah.
You have no clue what's going on.
I mean, this is old. Do you guys remember the? I mean, it's still kind of used puppy pause, right? You guys remember the origin of that?
I remember it. I remember seeing it, but it was a bit before my time.
Yeah, where Merlini breaks down. Basically, Merlini went back and kind of like broke down a pause. And there was, I don't remember exactly, but there was kind of accusations of, you know, like how this would have favored Na'Vi or Secret. I actually don't, this might have been.
It was Na'Vi. It was far enough back that it was Na'Vi.
Yeah. So how basically that would have favored Na'Vi, and maybe it was a little sus. Puppey got very mad about it and called Ben a not nice thing. And yeah, but that was like the origin of puppy pause, and I think it was like that was one of the things of like Dota is just like since that moment, kind of like everyone kind of like recognizes that pauses can be pretty grief. And in which case, do you feel like you've ever encountered a team or player that uses pauses in a grief way? Where, you know, they say internet or keyboard, mouse, whatever. You don't have to name names, honest, just, you know, do you think they're out there?
No, I want to name names.
Okay.
If I'm honest, I think Tundra last year, they always, in every single game during DPC loading in, would pause the game to like, I think have extra time to discuss whatever like they wanted to discuss.
Lane
like,
setups and stuff?
Yeah. They would, every single game, it would be mouse, keyboard, internet lag, whatever, you know, like every game. And there's just no way.
Have you asked Netta about it?
Are you accusing your own teammate?
There's no way. Like it doesn't matter. I'm not gonna ask because I know the answer. Do you know what I mean? That's how convinced I am.
When we see Liquid pause at the start of every series for the next year, we'll know where that came from.
Mouse, keyboard, lag.
Yeah.
I will say, the player I've seen do that the most was Eternal Envy back in the day. And he did have something wrong like every game, so it is possible. I just want to say
out of his chair. Or
yeah, like there are players. There's always something just broken. Like hotkeys are messed up, mouses out of battery, headsets broken. We
paused a script the other day where Ace's keycap came off. Like he pressed the key and the keycap flew across the room, and we had to pause so we could get his keycap.
There you go.
For real though, I feel like if they started introducing like, you know, you can pause the game, but we'll take $1,000 off your prize pool. Literally nobody would have issues anymore. there would be no pauses needed during any games of Dota.
What?
And I honestly,
I feel like it's the opposite. I feel like at that point in time, that's money you can spend. You know?
no,
Where you're
no,
like,
no.
well,
I
I'm
mean,
paying
no,
if
no,
it
no,
was
no.
real punishment. No, no, no. Okay, let's say like you lose 30-second draft time or whatever
Okay.
per pause.
Sure.
Like, because I think if I'm being real honest, I don't think we need as many pauses as we have.
Mm.
Like, I don't
agree.
just don't believe that like people have as many issues as they like claim they do. Like, if I knew I can't pause if my mouse is out of batteries, I'll make sure I charge it the night before. You know what I mean? And I feel like Dota people, myself included, we are all idiots, and we don't change unless there's like actual consequence to your actions. Because I remember like there was a Dream League, like one of the first ones where they were like, "Yeah, we're gonna take 10% of your prize winnings if
Yep.
you show up late."
This is literally what I was
And-
gonna say. Yeah.
And some team they got punished, and then ever since then I've not heard of anybody being late for Dream League. But trust me, you scrim Team Spirit, 45 minutes late, you scrim OG, BZM hasn't even woken up 30 minutes before you're supposed to, or like 30 minutes after you're supposed to play. So like there's something there, you know, like I'm sure if, you know, we wanted less pauses in Pro Dota, which I think most reasonable people want.
Yeah.
There just needs to be like some actual consequence to things.
Yeah, I'm down for it.
I think that's a general concept that goes underutilized in Dota.
Yeah.
Like I think Dota
Monetary
organizers,
punishment.
not necessarily monetary, but I think Dota organizers are extremely hesitant to set up punishment or penalty systems for Dota teams and players compared to almost any other esport.
Yeah.
And I think it's because Dota players historically have had a lot of power and a lot of say. And as a TO, you don't want to create a situation where like some big team might pull out of your tournament or be disgruntled on Twitter or something, because then like that backlash is worse. But then it only just seeds them more power, and then they get to do more of this shit that hurts you. And like in the long run, it's not good. And most teams and players, if you just set these rules, are gonna follow. Like no team at this point is gonna pull out of a Dream League or pull out of $1 million Elite League or something because you need to make them show up on time and make sure their mouse is charged right. It's just, it's like this looming threat still exists, but I don't think it should have as much power as it has historically. And like, I feel like Dota players have gotten away with a lot of shit over the last 10 years. Like, it's insane some of the shit they've gotten away with. That is, It's like if I were a TO, I would just kick you out of the tournament. Like, I don't care how big your name is. Like, it's like ridiculous at a certain point, which just gives them more credence to do this shit because they're like, well, I've gotten away with it in the past and nothing happened, so may as well keep doing it. And they're gonna keep doing it until someone just steps in and like nobody
Those
else steps
stories
in.
could go on the Patreon.
I mean, those stories will get me fired, but like it's just ridiculous. So I actually agree with that. I don't know why it's like that. I mean, I do. It's like a player power dynamic thing, but it's not hard when you set up leagues and there's a lot of money in it and people are going to play because of that alone. Like the prize pool being so high in Dota, there's a lot of downsides to it, but the upside is that you can actually control the fact that teams will pretty much always play in your events. Like no team is going to turn down $1 million prize pool event, and almost every event this year is like $1 million plus, which means as a TO you actually have leverage to dictate, format or like the amount of times the team has to do certain things, or like turn the cameras on. How long did it take us to get players to turn cameras on? Right, like this kind of
You
basic
can still
shit.
point them at like their toes or like the bottom of their neck. Like
Just
I
find
can
them.
see their nape. Like what is happening?
Find their ass. It's not that hard. The team's not just gonna pull out, right? Just find their ass, and you'll make your money back, and then you're happy, and then you still get like a better meme out of it because it'll go to social media, and then you'll get some Skiter tweet and some Seb tweet, and then your tournament will blow up, and you'll be doing great. But like I don't know, TOs are just still afraid to do some of this shit. I feel like.
Okay, I will agree, but as somebody who was on seeing the tournament organizers, like, okay, this is not shade thrown at CyborgMatt. This is actually him doing a really good job at what he's supposed to do. But I think for a tournament organizer, there was nothing scarier than 2020 CyborgMatt having a problem with your tournament, right? It was like, oh, fuck, Team Secret has a problem with our event in some way, and they're about to pull out, and they are by far the most dominant and by far the most popular team in the world. Right?
I agree, but
it's just
the
like,
ecosystem,
oh, fuck.
The ecosystem allowed that because in like 2020, 2019, there were like 40 lands, and they were all around like 250K prize pool. And Secret not going to one changed absolutely nothing about their year. They're going to go to the other 8 out of 9, so they had all the leverage, which is what it goes back to. But nowadays, the ecosystem is entirely different.
I think it's different, but I think there is still I mean, first of all, as a tournament organizer, you are in a very shitty spot where if you kick a team, the team is really angry with you. Maybe other teams get angry with you, and then you have the fans being angry that they don't get to watch their team anymore. So you're getting fucked on both sides of that equation, right?
But I mean,
very rarely is it like I kicked this really popular team and the community is behind you for it, right? Even if it's deserved, it's like, fuck you, I only watch to watch that fucking team, and you just took that away, so fuck your tournament. I'm not watching your shit anymore, right?
I feel like, okay. First of all, I think the punishments that in my mind, I'm talking about online events primarily. Because I think at LANs this happens less, and at LANs you have less opportunity to set yourself up. Like, you just might have issues. It's just more likely to happen. You're on a new setup, you're in a new place, you're all these new stuff. LANs, in my opinion, is still like gray zone. Online, you're on your own PC. You play on it every single day. Like, there's just it's all bullshit. And I don't think you want to kick teams out, but I do think, like, if it's within reason, like, let's say the punishment is within reason, and like I'm CyborgMatt, and I'm like, well, if you're gonna fine me $10 for showing up late, well, my team won't play. And then, you know, if once that reaches Reddit, I feel like. Just like the MC stuff, you know, like where everyone was like, "Oh my god, how could Tundra do this MC?" And then, like, once you get a bit more light, you kind of realize, okay, there's more nuance to this than I initially thought. And I do think, like, I don't know, maybe I'm stupid here, but I feel like the general public, they won't just always side with the players. They will, like, kind of understand, like, if it's within reason, some of the stuff. Like, if we are saying, like, hey, we want to get less pauses because it makes viewership suffer, and this is how we're going to look to do it, and these teams are being little bitches about it, like, you know, I feel like the public
it can be done well. If you get Jenkins to make a content piece out of it,
yeah, why not?
Maybe there's some way to be able to do it, but I think that the best it looks is like a 500 upvote thread on Reddit that is like, these guys did the right thing, and that's like a very small part of the community. Whereas, like, there is a much larger fan base that doesn't really care about the reasoning why, you know, and they just wanted to be able to watch their teams, and, you know, they don't give a fuck if the team was late, you know, whatever. I don't give a shit if the game's delayed 50 minutes. I wanted to watch Secret no matter what, you know.
But by that logic, let's invite Nigma to every tournament. Like, if that's all we care. No, but like if we're gonna go by that logic, then we should just invite the most popular teams to all the events, because that's what the people want.
I think, yeah, I agree that it's like that's what they should do. I'm just saying it's a really hard spot.
They should invite Nigma, or what are you saying?
Yes,
no, I'm saying they should penalize these teams.
Believe
me, I've get real mad about some of these things, because like I look at this as like, you're at a fucking job. Do your goddamn job, you know. So I get really mad, but, you know, like, I watch these tournament organizers, and I'm just like, just fucking kick them out. Like, what the fuck do you mean, you know? But you know, having these conversations enough, I get the fact that it's a lot of times it's just easier for them to roll over and roll with the punches, you know.
The biggest thing is you're in an entertainment industry that's a competitive entertainment industry, so you have the idolization of individuals, right?
Yeah.
Like, people hold these players on an extremely high pedestal, and you're never going to get rid of that because of the nature of how the system functions. But that creates a lot of really fucked up problems, to be honest, that just, like, people don't know about, but you're never going to change that, so you kind of have to work with it.
I just think within reason it should be fun.
Yeah, I agree. Like, if you don't have to kick a player out of team out of your turn, but like, if you penalize them because they won't turn on their webcams, and then as a TO you're like, well, we penalized them because they didn't turn on their webcams, and you post that, nobody's going to be there and, like, defending this team, you know. I just don't think that's how the ecosystem exists anymore. Maybe back in the day, but, like, I feel like this shit it's kind of basic. You're not asking them to do anything absurd. And I think there's also this part of the idolization is that Dota players for a long time, and still to a large degree, I think, I'm including myself in all these statements, like, don't really give a shit about the general community. Now, I think that's shifted over time. It used to be really bad. And now I think there are teams and players who interact a lot more with the community in positive ways and stuff, produce content, those sorts of things. But going back like 5 years, it was like, I want to win a TI. I'm here to win a TI. That's it. I don't care about anything else. I'm not doing content for an org. I'm not streaming. I don't want to interact at, like, LANs. You know, it was a struggle to get players to do any of this stuff. It still is to a large degree. TOs still struggle to get players to do this stuff on lane, which is like ridiculous. But I think it stems back to that. And like that's another big piece of this problem is if you're a TO, it already feels like a struggle sometimes to get players to do basic stuff that helps the community because from the player's perspective, it's not helping them win a TI. It's not helping them win a LAN, so they don't want to dedicate time to it, which is fair. But that's why you have to enforce this stuff. You know, you go into like a professional league, you have mandated media time. And if the guy doesn't show up, you fine his ass. Right? Like League has some of this stuff as well. It just exists because the players need to give a certain amount back to the community for the community to be sustained and grow over time. It can't just all funnel one direction, I think. And a lot of times players don't want to do that, which is fair, but then you just have to mandate it so it's even across the board. So you don't have certain teams that are doing like 10 times the media obligations other teams are because they're more willing and some other team isn't. That's not necessarily good either. I think it just goes back to like the player strength in the scene and also some players and teams' unwillingness to contribute anything in this regard because they don't deem it valuable for themselves. And then a TO not willing to enforce that. Like, I can't count the number of times at a tournament a TO or an organizer or whatever has not been willing to or didn't want to, maybe for fear of backlash, for implementing like mandatory media stuff against a big name team.
I mean, I don't want to say that like the TOs are doing a bad job because I also understand like where all this comes from and why things are or have been the way they were. But I feel like moving forward and like I just think a lot of these things are really different. I even had this conversation at TI where I just feel like the modern players is just so different than the previous generations when it comes to content and media. Like in my mind, the most media friendly team or the team that does the most content is Team Spirit.
Yep.
And their content has everything. Like you can hear them discuss drafts. You can hear them discuss strategy. You can hear them after a game, they will literally film the players with the camera in their face going like, why do you think you lost? And the player will be like, we picked this into that, and that was bad because of that. And I'm just sitting there like, okay. And then like, you know, I still go get my ass beat by them because they're just good. And it doesn't matter that like they said it out loud or whatever. So I just think like there shouldn't be, I think like the modern players, they understand like that they're part of a community and that they don't exist without the community and like giving back and all this stuff. So I feel like while it was true in the past, I think moving forward we should aim to slowly, not like look to like I don't think it should be like $1 million fine if you pause the game because your mouse is out of batteries, but like maybe try to like find a reasonable way to try to move away from these things, like the same way that we've done with everything else. Because the webcam thing wasn't like an overnight thing; it took like years. But now I think most teams kind of players just accept like, yeah, I've turned on my webcam, is what it is. That's not like I'm not saying like everybody's like, yes, I get to put on my webcam and I get to show off my face, because I definitely have players on my team that are not like that, and they Chloe has to come and be like, put on your webcam, and sometimes she just has to go on our computers and do it for us. But the job gets done, like it gets done, and I think there's just no way it's that hard. And like I feel like pauses in Dota, I don't even think the players I don't think anybody enjoys it. I just think it's like a bad habit from years past, and that it's like so whatever-y. We can fix it.
I'll piggyback on that. We could definitely fix the pause situation, and yes, I do agree that like the new generation of players are much better about content, and I think everything's trending to a better spot. I feel like it's still not where it can be or should be, but it's definitely much better than it was 2-3 years ago, and that is light years better than it was 10 years ago. So
6 years ago, holy crap, man, it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were some teams that really ruled the certain tournament scene with an iron fist. It was pretty crazy, but yeah, I think we're in a much better spot all around for the viewer. I'm just trying to get to a point where we can do drafts before a game and then have a pause, or you guys do the draft before the game, and that way we can do a pre-done segment on the draft and then go directly into the game from that. That for me, I think is a gigantic upgrade entertainment-wise, and I know you fucking hate it, but I think it would actually be such a great game changer for Dota as entertainment. But that's fine. I know I'm never gonna get it. That's fine.
Like we draft the day before, and then like
No, like
William
like
pulls up
30
in his
minutes
suit
before.
again, like CY's in his suit, and they're like, we pick.
No.
White
You
soccer.
guys
Like,
do
as a
it.
press conference.
No,
or-
you guys do it like literally like 20 minutes before, so Brian can go and do a weatherman segment on the draft and have it fast forwarded. So the draft is like a 3-minute segment piece where he's like, "Yeah, see this pick? Okay, now watch what's gonna happen here. They're gonna do this. Boom, pick up this hero, and boom, now they're entirely counter. You know, like that would make drafting so much more interesting and a better content piece. And I think it would get more casual viewers into professional Dota and just sitting there instead of just watching the panel, just like, yeah, look, they banned the Dragonite. Banned again. Boy, that's really good. Love that.
Yeah.
I think drafting could be done a lot better. But whatever. That's probably never gonna happen. We have gone really long with this episode, so we should probably close it out here. You guys got anything else you want to wrap up on? Okay.
I mean, that
Thanks,
was
Avery.
the best. That was the best change in Dota, by the way. When they removed pauses from the first 5 minutes of pubs.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
my gosh.
Number one. That was
Woo!
just for the record. The
so
number one.
unbearable. Holy crap.
No
Especially
more
for the
breaks
edit.
at the start of the
Especially-
You
game.
guys don't. I'm
NA
sure.
server.
I'm sure. Like lives were saved. Like from all the people that could not
Oh,
go
yeah.
and have a cigarette.
yeah.
Like Valve
Oh
literally
my
saved
gosh,
people's
dude.
lives.
I think there's probably like 10,000 people not in prison right now because of that single change.
I'm
from
not in
Valve.
prison because of that.
There's like 30,000
different
empty
reason.
hospital beds. Like generations of families were saved. You know, there's gonna be like it's like that Genghis Khan thing. There's like 1 million people like 300 years from now that are gonna exist solely because they removed pausing from the first 5 minutes.
tobacco companies are in shambles.
Yeah, it's. I just wanted to say,
Marlboro is
Thank you.
done.